fighting game community often attracts queer people. Now, there are multiple reasons for this. Many games have themes of self-expression, communities are incredibly accepting, and there's a sense of familial bonding with local scenes, which many queer people are in desperate need of. But one that many queer people will cite as to why they got into fighting games was the diversity and representation that the genre has been known for. Ever since the early 90s with Street Fighter 2's characters that range from all over the world, the genre has been much more diverse than other genres, even if Street Fighter 2 relied much too heavily on stereotypes. This has led for more and more fighting games to get more diverse, and eventually involving different sexualities and genders. In modern day, we have come so much farther than back in the 90s. However, there are some games that have diversity, but do it in a very poor way, especially with trans characters. One of the biggest offenders of this in my opinion is Ladiva from Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. I believe that she is based off of harmful stereotypes and misconceptions about trans people that harm the overall view of the trans community. I'll also go over some of the defenses I've heard of her character, and why I, as a non-fictional trans woman, see these ideas as harmful. But before I start, just a small disclaimer. I have played Grand Blue Fantasy Versus and Versus Rising, but I have not played the mobile game or Relink. However, I did go ahead and watch all of Ladiva's Fate episodes that I could find on YouTube, and have read transcripts for some of the ones that I couldn't find for some additional context. I may have missed some things from other games, but this video is mainly about how she appears in fighting games since that's the field I'm most familiar with. Okay, disclaimer done, start with the video. Now, as I said, Ladiva is based off of harmful stereotypes about trans women. Now, looking at her, it may be obvious what I'm talking about, but let's go in depth about her. Ladiva is a trans wrestler from the race called Draft, where men look like this, and women look like this. Now, besides the obvious horny sexual dimorphism we're seeing, we see something interesting. The creators chose to make a trans character from a race where you can very easily distinguish between men and women. This, in and of itself, isn't the worst thing in the world. I think that you can make a very interesting story about dysphoria and how that seeps into the mind. But that's not what they did. They made a story where a trans woman doesn't take any hormones, works out to get an incredibly muscular body, and on top of her race just being overly masculine, and doesn't shave. Besides the weird race dimorphism, these things are all harmful stereotypes that people use to belittle and harm trans women. When people are against trans people existing in spaces, such as, using the bathroom or wanting to be called a feminine name or feminine pronouns, they will often say that these are what trans women are, men pretending to be women to enter these spaces. They make up an imaginary 6'8" muscular bearded man calling themselves a woman. Most people can see how this idea is harmful. Ladiva then reinforces these ideas of what a trans woman is, a 6'6" muscular bearded woman. To someone who is unfamiliar with trans issues, or this is their first experience with a trans woman, real or fictional, they're going to assume this is what trans women are. And that makes them more susceptible to people who are against trans women existing in spaces, or at all for that matter, because they already believe that this is what trans women are. However, in reality, vast majority of trans women are just women. We take hormones, we shave, we just want to be seen as women. But when this is what being trans is perceived as, it makes it so much scarier to do. And I believe that it could potentially push some people back into the closet. If a trans woman who doesn't know she's trans yet sees Ladiva, and that's their only experience with trans people, which is very likely, then they can take it as this is what trans women are. If I was trans, this is what I would be. That's scary. I know this from firsthand. Before I came out, I saw transphobic imagery directly made to be transphobic. That pushed me back into the closet until I came out to myself at 18. This caused me to think that all trans women have the most masculine features, similar to Ladiva. This was terrifying. I wanted to be a girl, but thought that I couldn't. You wanna know what made me take the dive to think about being my true self? Bridget from Guilty Gear. She's an amazing trans rep. I would argue the best in major fighting games. After seeing a trans woman just being a girl, just exist as a woman, it made me think maybe I could do that too. And I am, and I'm very happy about it. But if I never had my moment with Bridget, just as I'm sure many trans women who don't know they're trans yet will never have, what would that leave me with? A skewed view of trans people, never thinking that I could be my true self, because the only time I see trans women are as super masculine. The same idea that Ladiva enforces, that trans women are big, have facial hair, and don't pass as women. I know for me at least, this would have kept me in the closet for a lot longer, staying as depressed as I was pre-transition. And honestly, that's a fate I really wouldn't wish upon anyone. Now, for all of these faults of her character, there are some people who defend her character, and I'd like to go over some of the common defenses and give why I personally don't like them. But first I want to say that other people aren't wrong for defending her character, supporting her character, or anything, and no one deserves harassment for anything they say about a fictional character. But going on to it, one of the more common things I see thrown around is that she resonates with those who are gender nonconforming, especially masculine women. And if she resonates with you, great. However, why does it have to be a trans woman to be gender nonconforming? Why can't it be a cis woman? When many trans women want to be seen as not masculine, it feels incredibly vile to show us as masculine and then claim it's for another marginalized group. It feels like they basically say, you can't dislike this representation of your group because another group might feel represented by them. It very much feels like liberal transphobia. I have also heard from non-binary people that they relate to her character. And again, on a personal level, that's great if you relate to her, but she is very much within the gender binary. She is supposed to represent a binary trans woman. If they made her non-binary, even her non-binary, I would probably love her. I'd probably play Grand Blue Versus more, but simply, she's not. And I think it's very telling that the people that relate to her the most are those she's not even meant to represent. The final argument I would like to go over would be the idea that she shows trans women to love their bodies no matter what. I do believe that's a sweet idea, but this character represents things most trans women hate about themselves, me included. This world has magical hormones through alchemy, but instead of taking those magic hormones, Ladiva just doesn't. And this could be taken as, you can be trans, but you shouldn't take hormones. You should love yourself as is. When most trans people don't love their bodies, but once they start taking hormones, they do start loving themselves. Now, that's a very extreme way to take it, and I doubt the creator is intended for that, but just that it can be taken that way goes to show you how awful this all is. Overall, unless you are very generous to your interpretations, I don't see how Ladiva can be taken as anything but bad representation. I hope I've shown today why I believe Ladiva is bad representation. Not only is she based off of harmful stereotypes, but she can also cause active harm to people within the trans community, especially those still in the closet. When we look forward to characters in media, I hope this will be an example of what to avoid and how not to make a trans character. At least, I can hope so.